And it's suing him for $100 million because of Shedeur Sanders falling to the 5th round of NFL draft.
Since Shedeur Sanders got drafted into the NFL, it's been one legal threat after another, but his latest move just made things worse. Sanders reportedly signed a $250 million deal outside the NFL, and now NFL owners are hitting back hard. We've got all the details. Let's break it down. The groundbreaking deal that changed everything. When Shedeur Sanders signed his rookie contract with the Cleveland Browns on May 19, 2025, it looked like just another routine NFL transaction. A 5th-round pick selected 144th overall, getting his standard 4-year deal worth $4.65 million. But hidden within the fine print of Sanders' contract was a revolutionary clause that would send shockwaves through the NFL establishment and potentially reshape how professional athletes negotiate their deals forever.
Shedeur Sanders has a prime equity clause. The prime equity clause gives Sanders a percentage of all revenue generated from merchandise, sponsorships, and promotion tied to his name, image, and likeness.
The prime equity clause, as it came to be known, represents the most significant shift in player-team power dynamics since free agency was established. This unprecedented provision grants Sanders a percentage of all revenue generated from merchandise, sponsorships, and promotion tied to his name, image, and likeness, effectively transforming him from just another player into a business partner with the Cleveland Browns organization. The specific percentage isn't publicly disclosed, but estimates suggest 5 to 6% based on reported earnings, creating a commission-based system that turns traditional salary structures on their head. To understand the magnitude of this development, we need to examine what Sanders actually negotiated compared to his contemporaries. While Caleb Williams, selected 1st overall by Chicago, signed a 4-year, $39.4 million contract with a $25.5 million signing bonus, Sanders' base contract is comparatively modest. His deal includes $447,000 in guaranteed money through his signing bonus, with base salaries that escalate annually from $840,000 in 2025 to $1.2 million in 2028. The contract structure follows the NFL's rookie wage scale established in the 2011 collective bargaining agreement, which slots contracts based on draft position with limited negotiation room. As a 5th-round pick, Sanders' deal is a standard 4-year agreement without the 5th-year team option reserved for 1st-round selections. The Browns can release Sanders with minimal dead cap penalty after year 1, making it a low-risk investment from their perspective. However, the equity clause transforms this risk-reward calculation entirely. However, what makes Sanders' contract revolutionary isn't the base numbers. It's the equity clause that has already begun paying dividends in ways that dwarf traditional NFL rookie earnings. Sanders' rookie jersey sales have reportedly hit $250 million, earning him $14 million in commission, which far exceeds not just his entire 4-year base contract, but the earnings of most veteran quarterbacks in their first season.
It says this is already paid off. Shedeur's rookie jersey has reportedly hit $250 million in sales, earning him $14 million in commission, which far exceeds most rookie earnings.
The structure of this clause is legally ingenious. Rather than circumventing the NFL's salary cap, it's designed as a revenue-sharing agreement, treated as business income rather than player salary, which keeps it compliant with current collective bargaining agreement rules. The clause allocates an estimated 5 to 6% of Browns' NIL-related revenue from jerseys, sponsorships, and digital content directly to Sanders, creating a new template for how athletes might structure future contracts. The financial categories covered by the clause are comprehensive, including jersey sales, apparel merchandise, promotional slogans, and digital content tied to Sanders' brand. This creates multiple revenue streams that benefit both Sanders and the Browns, as his personal brand drives merchandise sales that the team would never have achieved with a typical 5th-round pick. The arrangement essentially makes Sanders a profit center rather than just a cost on the salary cap. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of Sanders' deal extends beyond mere financial compensation. The contract includes provisions that grant him full ownership of all his personal media content and digital platforms, including his Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch channels. This level of media control is virtually unprecedented in professional sports, where teams typically maintain strict oversight of player content and messaging. The media rights component represents a fundamental shift in how professional athletes can control their narratives. Traditional NFL contracts often include clauses that give teams significant control over player social media and public appearances. Sanders' arrangement flips this dynamic, allowing him to maintain complete editorial control over his content while providing the Browns with access to revenue generated through his platforms.
But Bucky is able to be behind the scenes that way because it's in Shedeur's contract that he controls his own media. Why? Why would Shedeur want to control his own media? Because then I could paint my own narratives. and then I can let you guys hear my side.
Even more remarkably, the contract includes a unique NFL media rights arrangement that allows Deion Sanders Jr., Shedeur's half-brother, to produce behind-the-scenes content, essentially embedding his own media team within the professional structure. This provision required special approval from NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell himself, highlighting just how unprecedented these negotiations were. The arrangement allows Sanders Jr. to create content that would normally be flagged and removed by NFL copyright enforcement, giving Sanders unprecedented access to his own professional content. The tax implications of Sanders' unique contract structure add another layer of complexity. The equity clause earnings are treated as business income, which means Sanders can potentially claim business deductions, but must also pay self-employment taxes. This creates a more complicated tax situation than traditional player salaries, but potentially offers greater long-term financial benefits through business expense deductions and investment opportunities. The financial implications become even more staggering when we consider Sanders' broader endorsement portfolio, which seamlessly transitioned from his college NIL deals to professional contracts. His Nike partnership, potentially worth $5 to $10 million annually, represents just one component of an endorsement empire that includes deals with Beats by Dre, Gatorade, Mercedes-Benz, and Urban Outfitters. These endorsements leveraged his college NIL valuation of approximately $6.5 million annually, creating a seamless transition to professional earning potential.
But in business, people understand how valuable your own platform is, especially because it builds and it grows over time. And in this situation, right, him retaining full ownership of all his personal media content, that means he can post NFL.
When combined with his equity clause earnings, Sanders' total first-year compensation is estimated between $18 to $37 million, making him potentially the highest-earning rookie in NFL history, despite being selected in the 5th round. This earning potential rivals established veterans and demonstrates how personal branding can transcend traditional performance metrics in the modern sports landscape. The historical precedents for Sanders' contract structure can be traced to innovative deals across multiple sports. Michael Jordan's 1984 Nike deal, which included royalty payments from Air Jordan sales, established the template for athletes participating in product revenue. Similarly, Cristiano Ronaldo's Real Madrid contract included image rights clauses worth approximately 20 million euros annually, demonstrating how global superstars could monetize their personal brands within team structures. This dramatic disparity between draft position and earning potential illustrates a fundamental shift in how player value is calculated in the modern NFL. Traditional metrics focus solely on on-field performance and draft stock, but Sanders' contract demonstrates how personal branding, social media presence, and cultural influence can create value streams that transcend conventional team structures. The historical context makes this development even more significant. Sanders' draft slide from a projected top 10 pick to 144th overall cost him approximately $44 million in traditional contract value compared to quarterbacks like Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. Yet through innovative contract structuring and leveraging his personal brand, he's potentially earning more than both of those higher drafted players in his first year.
This is why they hate Shedeur Sanders. This is what it's about, man. It's that the things that he's coming in negotiating have never been done before. They always want it, and they like it for players to stay in a position of servitude.
The precedent this sets cannot be overstated. Sanders' deal represents the first time an NFL rookie has successfully negotiated equity participation in team revenues tied to his personal brand, creating a template that other athletes across all sports are likely to pursue. The clause effectively bridges the gap between college NIL opportunities and professional compensation structures, allowing players to maintain and monetize their personal brands even within the restrictive framework of professional sports contracts. As we realize the broader implications of this groundbreaking deal, it becomes clear that Sanders and his negotiating team, led by his father Deion Sanders, have fundamentally altered the landscape of professional sports contracts. But this revolutionary deal didn't happen in a vacuum. The circumstances that made Sanders available in the 5th round tell a story that's just as controversial as his contract itself. The controversial draft slide and allegations of collusion. What transpired before Shedeur's revolutionary contract was one of the most dramatic quarterback slides in recent memory, accompanied by allegations of coordinated resistance that have sparked legal challenges and heated debates about systemic issues within the NFL.
And it's suing him for $100 million because of Shedeur Sanders falling to the 5th round of NFL draft, claiming emotional distress, trauma, and other things.
Sanders entered the 2025 draft cycle as a projected top 10 pick, with many mock drafts placing him as high as first overall to the Miami Dolphins or second to the Las Vegas Raiders. His college credentials were impressive: a 72.3% completion rate, 4,134 yards, 37 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions in his final season at Colorado, posting a 169.1 passer rating. These statistics placed him among the elite quarterback prospects. Yet despite these statistical achievements and his high-profile college career, Sanders would watch 143 names called before his own. The immediate financial impact of this slide was catastrophic. As a projected first overall pick, Sanders could have earned approximately $48.8 million over 4 years with a $32.2 million signing bonus. Even as a second overall selection, his contract would have been worth around $46.6 million with roughly $30 million guaranteed. Instead, his 5th round selection yielded that modest $4.65 million deal, representing a staggering $44 million loss in traditional contract value. This slide ranks among the most dramatic quarterback falls in modern draft history, comparable to players like Brady Quinn in 2007 or Geno Smith in 2013, though neither of those players carried Sanders' pre-draft expectations. But what caused such a dramatic fall? The explanations range from legitimate football concerns to more troubling allegations of coordinated resistance. Scouting reports highlighted several areas of concern: inconsistent deep ball accuracy, a tendency to hold the ball too long resulting in 52 sacks during his 2023 season, and questions about his ability to adapt from Colorado's simplified offensive system to complex NFL schemes. Some scouts labeled him a system quarterback who thrived in Colorado's spread offense but might struggle with NFL complexity. The 2025 NFL Combine provided additional red flags that contributed to his slide. While Sanders measured well physically at 6 2 inches and 215 pounds with a 4.78 second 40-yard dash, his interviews drew criticism from multiple teams, with reports indicating he came across as overly confident, with some teams perceiving arrogance or entitlement. Anonymous GMs cited his insistence on franchise control, including choosing coaches or schemes, as a significant red flag that made teams question his coachability and team-first mentality. The family dynamics surrounding Sanders added another complicating factor: Deion Sanders' public statements, including claims that Shedeur would refuse certain teams, particularly cold-weather cities like Cleveland, alienated some franchises. NFL legends Kurt Warner and Chris Carter criticized the family for overplaying their hand, with Deion's media presence seen as a distraction that teams wanted to avoid. This created a perception that drafting Shedeur meant dealing with ongoing family interference and media scrutiny. However, the most explosive allegations surrounding Sanders' draft slide center on claims of systematic collusion among NFL teams. These accusations have been amplified by high-profile figures within the football community, creating a controversy that extends far beyond typical draft analysis and touches on deeper issues of league governance and potentially discriminatory practices.
Here's the thing that I heard, I was like, this is interesting. Because there's this maybe collusion angle that goes on with Shedeur Sanders. Like, how does a first-round talent go to the 5th round? And there's really no reference points we have. There's a few out there, but they weren't graded as high, supposedly, as Shedeur.
NFL Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson made perhaps the most serious allegation, claiming on the Rogan and Rodney show that a very good source informed him the NFL instructed teams not to draft Sanders to make an example out of him for treating the pre-draft process like recruitment rather than a job interview. Dickerson alleged that even the Browns were initially directed against drafting Sanders, but were eventually encouraged by an unnamed source to proceed. This allegation suggests coordinated league-wide resistance rather than individual team decisions. Former NFL MVP Boomer Esiason added fuel to these allegations, stating that multiple owners explicitly ordered teams not to draft Sanders. ESPN's Stephen A. Smith took these claims even further, reporting that owners made it clear they didn't want Sanders, comparing the situation to Kaepernick-level collusion, and suggesting resentment toward Deion Sanders' influence played a significant role. Smith's allegations specifically mentioned text messages and private communications between owners coordinating their resistance to Sanders. The allegations became so serious that they sparked legal action. In May 2025, a Colorado Buffaloes fan filed a $100 million lawsuit against the NFL, alleging antitrust violations under the Sherman Act, racial discrimination under the Civil Rights Act, and collusion causing emotional distress. The suit demands access to internal communications, scouting reports, and an alleged 61-page arbitration report on collusion against black quarterbacks. While legal experts predict the lawsuit will likely be dismissed as frivolous, it demonstrates the seriousness with which some observers view the allegations.
So he would only have something if he could prove collusion.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
But not liking him isn't collusion.
Well,
That's not collusion. You have your right to not draft somebody because you don't like them.
The pre-draft demands reportedly made by Sanders and his team provided additional ammunition for teams seeking reasons to avoid him. These included guarantees on playing time, offensive schemes tailored to Sanders' style, and even influence over personnel decisions. Most significantly, his insistence on the prime equity clause sparked concerns about future contract negotiations, with teams fearing they were setting a precedent that could fundamentally alter how they structure deals with future players. Some teams reportedly viewed these demands as overreach from a college player who hadn't yet proven himself at the professional level. The perception that Sanders was making first overall pick demands, despite questions about his NFL readiness, created resistance even from teams that might otherwise have been interested in his talent level. Comparisons to past cases of alleged NFL collusion provide important context for evaluating these claims. The Colin Kaepernick situation in 2017 proved that NFL owners could coordinate to blacklist a player, with Kaepernick's lawsuit ultimately settling for millions after evidence of coordinated resistance emerged. The case established legal precedent for proving NFL collusion when concrete evidence of coordination exists. Similarly, Lamar Jackson faced questions about potential collusion during his 2023 free agency, particularly regarding teams' resistance to fully guaranteed contracts. While Jackson ultimately signed a record deal with Baltimore, the extended process and apparent league-wide reluctance to meet his terms raised similar questions about coordinated resistance.
because he's cocky, arrogant, then they're going to start and play it. They're going to OJ Glove it, and it's going to turn into some whole different issue because a black, confident, arrogant kid that's not liked for no other reason but just because I don't like him.
The racial component of the allegations adds another layer of complexity to the Sanders situation. Critics point to historical patterns of black quarterbacks being undervalued or facing additional scrutiny compared to their white counterparts. Sanders' confident demeanor, combined with his family's high-profile advocacy, may have triggered unconscious biases that affected his draft stock beyond pure football considerations. However, not everyone accepts the collusion narrative. Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated has debunked collusion claims, attributing the slide to legitimate concerns including poor interviews, family interference, and performance issues, particularly Sanders' sack-prone playing style. Breer argues that teams had valid football reasons for passing on Sanders that didn't require coordination or conspiracy. The truth likely lies somewhere between systematic conspiracy and pure coincidence. Sanders' combination of talent, personality, family dynamics, and unprecedented contract demands created a perfect storm that made many teams uncomfortable. Whether this discomfort rose to the level of coordinated collusion remains to be proven, but the circumstances certainly created the opportunity for Sanders to fall far enough that Cleveland could select him and accommodate his revolutionary contract structure.
I think it would be hard to prove that part of it. It is interesting, though, when you talk about Shedeur, that when you look at the league's website, and you're not on social, but this stuff, when he got drafted, it was pinned on NFL.
The irony of Sanders' situation cannot be overstated. The very factors that caused his draft slide may have ultimately worked in his favor. By falling to the 5th round, he landed with a team willing to negotiate his groundbreaking contract terms, potentially earning more in his first year than he would have as a top 10 pick. This outcome suggests that sometimes perceived setbacks can create unexpected opportunities for those willing to think creatively about value creation. As Sanders embarked on his professional career with Cleveland, the circumstances of his selection created both opportunities and challenges that would define not just his rookie season, but potentially the future of player empowerment across professional sports. NFL establishment pushback and future implications. The NFL's response to Shedeur Sanders' revolutionary contract has been a masterclass in institutional resistance, revealing the deep-seated tensions between traditional power structures and the emerging reality of player empowerment. What started as one rookie's innovative deal has evolved into a broader battle over the future of professional sports, with implications that extend far beyond football and into the fundamental relationship between athletes and the organizations they represent. The most telling indicator of establishment concern came from an unexpected source, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell himself. In a widely circulated video interaction with Deion Sanders, Goodell made a comment that seemed innocuous on the surface but carried deeper implications about the league's anxiety over Sanders' influence and the precedent his son's contract might set for future negotiations.
It's Sanders.
Hey, big guy. What's going on? How you doing? Hey, look. You doing all right? You gotta let my brother have his way in the league. Yeah, you gotta. I'm worried about your pop. How you doing? What you worried about him for?
I'm worried about your pop.
This seemingly casual exchange reveals the NFL's genuine concern about Deion Sanders' role in reshaping player negotiations. The commissioner's worry isn't about Shedeur's performance on the field, it's about the precedent being set by his father's business acumen and willingness to challenge traditional structures. Deion's influence represents a threat to the established order because he combines insider knowledge of NFL operations with the business sophistication to exploit structural weaknesses in traditional contract frameworks. Cleveland Browns owner Jimmy Haslam's reaction has been particularly telling and reflects the internal organizational tension created by accommodating Sanders' unprecedented demands. Despite his team hosting Sanders extensively pre-draft, Haslam reportedly distanced himself from the Sanders pick amid draft backlash, with sources claiming he might still pursue Arch Manning despite having Sanders under contract. This suggests internal organizational tension about accommodating Sanders' unprecedented demands while managing traditional expectations and potential criticism from other NFL owners. The broader NFL ownership group's concerns center on the potential domino effect of Sanders' contract structure, particularly as it relates to cost inflation and loss of traditional control mechanisms. Anonymous reports indicate that some owners absolutely hate the clause for potentially inflating costs and decentralizing control. The fear isn't just about Sanders himself, it's about what happens when the next consensus first-round pick or even established veterans demand similar revenue-sharing arrangements.
And you run fast, you jump high, you say yes sir, no sir, and we'll tell you what you're allowed to have. You don't believe that? Go look at Jerry Jones and Micah Parsons. Right now, the negotiation that's going back and forth between them.
The resistance extends beyond financial concerns to fundamental questions about media control and narrative management, which have traditionally been jealously guarded by NFL organizations. Sanders' retention of his personal media rights represents a direct challenge to the NFL's traditionally tight control over player messaging and content. The league's approval of Deion Sanders Jr.'s U.S. media rights arrangement was unprecedented, requiring personal intervention from Commissioner Goodell and creating anxiety about future similar requests. This media component has proven particularly valuable in Sanders' case, allowing him to control his narrative during challenging moments such as preseason struggles or questions about team dynamics. When traditional NFL media structures might frame situations negatively, Sanders' personal media team can provide context and perspective that supports his interests rather than the league's preferred messaging. The legal implications of Sanders' contract have also created significant concern within NFL circles, particularly as they relate to potential challenges to existing labor structures. The NFLPA has been monitoring the clause's implementation, not out of opposition, but to understand how similar arrangements might benefit other players. However, this attention has created anxiety among team executives about potential grievances, demands for retroactive benefits, or challenges to existing contract structures that don't include equity participation. Player agents across the league have taken notice of Sanders' success, with many reportedly studying the contract structure for application to their own clients. This has created a game-changer mentality that extends beyond individual contracts to fundamental questions about revenue sharing and player compensation structures across the entire league.
And make no mistakes about it. Yes, Shedeur Sanders was a fifth-round pick, but he ain't never been a fifth-round talent. That's why in his mind, he is saying, I can change a franchise if you give me the opportunity to.
The on-field dynamics have added another layer of complexity to the Sanders situation, creating both validation and concern for different stakeholders within the organization and league. His preseason performance created a mixed narrative that different parties could interpret according to their existing positions on his contract and role. Sanders' impressive debut against the Carolina Panthers, completing 14 of 23 passes for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns, demonstrated his potential and justified the Browns' investment in his innovative contract structure. The performance showed that his college success could translate to professional football, supporting arguments that his draft slide was indeed unfair and potentially discriminatory. However, his struggles in the final preseason game against the Los Angeles Rams, where he took 5 sacks and completed only 10 of 18 passes for 95 yards with 1 interception, provided ammunition for critics who questioned the entire arrangement. This performance highlighted concerns about his pocket presence and decision-making under pressure that had been raised during the draft process. Former NFL quarterback Robert Griffin III became a vocal defender of Sanders during this period, arguing that the team was setting him up for failure by not providing adequate support during his difficult performances. This created additional media controversy and forced Cleveland coaches to address conspiracy theories about their handling of Sanders, further complicating the team's management of the situation.
So when people say, hey, they're setting him up for failure, this is what they're talking about. I believe the Browns have good intentions for all the quarterbacks in their room.
The international implications of Sanders' contract have also drawn attention from global sports business analysts and organizations. His global endorsement potential, leveraged through Nike's international campaigns, and his 5.7 million Instagram followers with 15% international engagement, demonstrates how modern athlete brands transcend traditional geographic boundaries. This global reach amplifies both the value and the threat that Sanders represents to traditional NFL structures as it creates revenue streams that extend far beyond typical team-controlled markets. The international dimension becomes particularly significant when considering that Sanders jersey sales have reportedly been strong in markets like the UK, Germany, and Brazil, where NFL viewership has been growing. This global appeal creates value that traditional contract structures weren't designed to capture, supporting arguments for innovative arrangements like Sanders' equity clause. Looking toward future CBA negotiations, Sanders' contract is expected to become a significant talking point that could reshape the fundamental structure of player compensation. Analysts predict the clause could spark debates about caps on NIL revenue shares or formal definitions of equity clauses. The 2026 CBA discussions may need to address whether such arrangements should be limited, regulated, or formally incorporated into league structures as standard options for players. The precedent extends beyond football to other professional sports, with basketball, baseball, and soccer leagues watching the Sanders experiment closely. Successful implementation of equity-based compensation in NFL contracts could lead to similar demands from athletes in other sports, potentially reshaping professional athletics compensation across multiple industries.
That's what Shedeur said. Now, when you couple that, see, back then we didn't understand what he was asking for in his contract. When you couple that information that I just gave you guys, right?
Perhaps most significantly, Sanders' contract demonstrates the evolution of athlete empowerment from individual negotiation to systematic change. By successfully implementing revenue sharing tied to personal brand value, Sanders and his team have created a template that other athletes can follow, potentially reshaping professional sports compensation structures across multiple leagues and fundamentally altering the balance of power between athletes and organizations. The NFL's ultimate response to this challenge will likely determine the league's relationship with its players for years to come. Whether they choose to embrace these innovations as beneficial for league growth or resist them as threats to traditional power structures will reveal much about professional sports' willingness to evolve with changing cultural and economic realities. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.